Yesterday at tea time we were talking about different types of intelligence, different skill sets which are important to develop on a Buddhist path or in a life well lived. The Buddha gives a list of 7 anya, or knowledges, which you can think of as different types of intelligence. The list is very fun. In Pali, it's Dhammanyu, Attanyu, Attanyu, Matanyu, Kalanyu, Pugalanyu, Pugalo, Paroparanyu. So that's knowing the Dhamma, knowing the meaning, knowing oneself, knowing the measure, knowing the time, knowing groups, and knowing differences between groups. And I think just the central 4 of those are good to focus on and give attention to. So that's knowing oneself and knowing the measure, knowing the right amount, knowing time, the time and place for things, and knowing different groups. And it's good in any Buddhist practice to realize the importance of awareness and knowing how to establish mindfulness in the present moment. So as you learn and develop skill and awareness in these different realms, it's always good to ground that in the body and in a bright knowing. So the first one is Attanyu, knowing oneself. And that's has all the implications that it would, or many of them, is just in pop psychology. Although you have to undergird that with the knowledge that all of this is instrumental knowledge. There is this truth of not self on a very, very basic, the most basic level, but there is a truth that we have habits and conditions, and knowing what your own conditions are is very important for how you live your life from day to day. The next knowledge, intelligence, is matanyu, knowing the measure. That's with regards to food, with regards to clothing, shelter, how much you can exert yourself, and this intertwines with knowing yourself, but how much food is the right amount, how much sleep is the right amount, and it's an education, it's a self-education, and you have to actually pay attention to these things. There's no right hour. 4 hours is not the right amount of sleep for everybody. 16 mouthfuls of food, or 9 mouthfuls of food, or 40 mouthfuls of food, or 80 mouthfuls of food is not the right amount of food for everybody. So you have to look at this yourself. Kalanyu, knowing the time. So the Buddha defined this as, this is the time for exertion and meditation. This is the time for listening to the Dhamma. This is the time for study, etc. So throughout the day here at Abhayagiri, it's a wonderful training environment. And you've got all of these little pockets, these time blocks throughout the day where it's very clear. This is the time for meditation. This is the time for work. This is the time for eating. And throughout all of this, again, mindfulness, embodied mindful awareness. That's the thread throughout the day. But time boxes are very clear. Kalanyu, knowing the time. And then parisanyu is knowing different groups. So in this group, I should relate in this way. In this other group, with lay people, with monks, we relate in maybe different ways. And that's a type of intelligence, and it's not something which comes to everybody so naturally, but you can study it. There's a group of monastics here studying nonviolent communication, and this is a very intentional way of gaining skill in this knowledge of group dynamics and also interpersonal dynamics. So these 4, knowing oneself, knowing the measure, knowing time, and knowing differentiation between groups. These are really important things to give attention to, and throughout all of it, if you can't remember those 4, then don't worry, just stay embodied and keep mindfulness and brightness and awareness as your ground. And there is an intelligence that can come from that if you just stay in the present moment and bright and aware and awake. That is the key to all of these different types of knowing, of knowledge. So may we all grow in these things, and just say for myself, just very grateful for this group of amazing Kalyanamitta, beautiful friends, wonderful friends, spiritual friends. So grateful. These are best friends in the world. Again, metta, universal metta. You don't want to have necessarily best friends, but you guys are kind of like best friends to the extent that we're allowed to say that. So yeah, much gratitude for always being received so well here, and thanks for everyone's friendship, and may we all grow on the path. Ewan.